you brought up a real first appearance, and I have a real first appearance that I secured over the last couple of years, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, because I was in a documentary. That's right. Well, it's coming out soon.
Yeah,
I was going to say.
But we're going to talk about it soon, and I'll get to it, but not before we talk about Hero Restoration. Hot damn. Okay, so this company, they're magicians. They literally have family ties to Harry Potter, because there's a lot of secrecy within this company. But when you really look at the lineage, there are individuals who are part of this company that actually have dabbled in magic. I'm not going to say the occult, but for sure the supernatural. All right. hrcomics.com is where you can send your expensive paper to be fixed. Make them their best selves by artists, but specifically comic experts who know how to fix it. And we have a picture to show you just how much a press, a cleaning, can better a comic book. This is where you send your Avengers 1 to, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to their Instagram page specifically, because that's the one I follow.
Link in the description.
They constantly put up new photos. So their latest is an Avengers 1 with a massive spine roll and plus extra staples all along the spine. But they fixed the spine roll, so immediately you know you have better eye appeal. Okay, it looks far better from just that alone. Then they press the cover as well, which, Russ, you looked at that as too. And what did you think with the pressing of that cover?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, really, it's one of those things that there are a lot of people out there who are doing pressing and restoration, and Hero Restoration is absolutely in the top %. I definitely recommend them. Their results are impressive every single time.
And I'll tell you where it goes a little further, because, I mean, I press and other people press too. So there's a lot of people who do it. And you can learn very well with time and practice, and you get to the same level maybe at some point if you make that a dedication. You still see residuals from a press sometimes, so you don't always necessarily get it fully out, but I've seen with them that they get that little extra bit, okay, because you can see a press, and you can see sometimes a wrinkle came out, but it's still a little bit there, but you did a good job. You gave yourself a pat on the back. You're like, I did the best I could, and I improved the book.
Right.
But they'll take it a little bit further, where it's just a little more faint than anything I think I could do without putting the extra time. And at that point, you might as well have the professional do it.
Seeing in some of the pictures on their Instagram, truthfully, you can look at them and go, if I were to do this, I could make the crease look better. Their crease looks removed. It's really impressive how well they can do on a lot of these books. I'm actually shocked sometimes when I see the A and B photos on these.
Comic fam, go do yourself a favor. Follow Hero Restoration on Instagram. At the very least, you're going to be hit with some awesome eye candy. I think it's always really fun to see before and afters. It'll get you motivated, wanting you to press some stuff. It'll also give you some ideas when you're looking at comics going, you know what? This could be a 9.4, 9.6, 9.8 if you get it to the right individuals, or if you take on the duties, as Jeff said, and start practicing, which I encourage. I love pressing me some books, but time is tough. And if you're not really diligent and you're doing it all the time, you may mess up. And messing up on most comic books is no big deal, but if it's an expensive book, if it's an Avengers #1, you're gonna really be upset. But that's not what this conversation's about. hrcomics.com. Big shout out to the second sponsor of the show. And we got to get into, I want to bring it back. I want to bring it back to the Submariner issue that we were just talking about, Motion Picture Funnies Weekly #1. Because Motion Picture Funnies Weekly #1 is a very scarce book, and it's a promotional item. I've mentioned the Hellboy lens on the show multiple times. I use this analogy, this example regularly when discussing first appearances and cameo appearances, because how dicey does this get, being that we discuss so many trending books, and it's the trending books that kind of come and go largely because of something that's new that happened. And a lot of the times that when books get like trendingly hot, it's because of a first appearance and or cameo.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even as recently as like talking about the Moon Knight things, we had the Warren Ellis Moon Knight run that had the first appearance of Mr. Knight. And then people started talking about Secret Avengers, which is the first time we saw Moon Knight in the Moon Knight suit. So people are always looking for that. What's the first? What's the real first? And Hellboy is one of those that every single time you turn around, you find another one go, oh, Maybe it was that one because Mignola had been working on this Hellboy character for forever.
It's just a really good example of how dicey things can get, because we were talking about Marvel previews before, and I think one of the big determinations of the value of that book, outside of Miles being on the cover, is the size of the book. I think collectors really enjoy comic book size. We even seen that with Star Wars keys, because a lot of these Star Wars key books were adapted from a larger, oversized retelling of the story. But it's the comic books that people are after. It's specifically something that's going to fit in their short box, their long box, you know, their frame or something on set like we have here. So, one of the very, very earliest grails that I added to my list was a Hellboy key book that were known to exist, but they're essentially known as ghost comic books. Hellboy collectors know them. I've known it. You guys have heard me talk in length about this. When I first met you, Jeff, I asked you about this book. I told you to keep it on your radar. Russ, I have told you multiple times, and you've told, I don't even know how many people, because you see so many more individuals, to keep an eye out for this particular collectible.
Oh, yeah.
Great Salt Lake Comic-Con pamphlet, debuted in 1991. This was the demon that Hellboy was commissioned to draw on the inside of a convention at the Great Salt Lake Comic-Con. And it was given out. It's a little oversized, and we'll show the cover of this on the screen because this is my copy. I acquired it last year. And I purchased this copy from the person who acquired it from eBay, which was the last eBay sale of this item, dating back to before, I believe it was 2012. We're talking near 2010, 2012 is when the last eBay item went, and it came and went for hundreds of dollars because people didn't know what it was. Well, I can tell you, we covered this sale and it hit around $5,000. And I'll tell everybody that I paid over $9,000 for the thing. So that's how much this book meant to me as a person who was hunting for a grail. And I traded up to it. I like to do the Gem Mint style, have the hobby fund itself, you know. I moved some books and I got an expensive grail that a lot of people would scoff at. But you know what? Over the last month, I was invited to go meet someone at your shop, Russ. And what happened?
Well, they ended up asking to be able to videotape this and show the actual page of the Hellboy. So Tom got to be in a Hellboy documentary with this book. Again, as long as I've been doing this, is the only copy of this I've ever seen. Tom and I have been trying to find a copy of this forever. The fact that you even were able to acquire one is really mind-blowing. So this is, again, the one copy that we know of that has ever been traded publicly.
It's so strange, but the director behind the next Mignola documentary, it's like the first official Mike Mignola documentary, he hit you up because he was nearby.
Right.
And then he got in touch with me via IG and said, hey, we're done filming the movie. We did everything. We met with Mignola. We met with Frank Miller. We met with Neil Gaiman, right? And out of all the shots that they had, all the original artwork, I mean, they met with Mignola. Like, they had access to everything.
At his house doing all of the, hey, what's the original art you draw? Yeah.
They did not have a copy to show, like a nice visual representation of Great Salt Lake Comic-Con, the pamphlet. So when he saw that I had one and he could find us at your shop, I went out there and my hands were indeed in the documentary. I opened up the book to the spread and the gentleman got some really good takes. And I'm excited to see the Mignola documentary. The comic fan knows that he's like one of my favorite artists of all time, the king of negative space. Well, this right here is the pinnacle of Mignola / Hellboy grails to own outside of like original art. And that market, which we're not even touching on, are one of ones that go crazy. And they've been hitting all kinds of highs over the last couple of years. But it keeps getting more interesting because the Hellboy depicted in this pamphlet, it's a demon. It doesn't look like Big Red. It doesn't look like Hellboy from Seed of Destruction. It looks like just a random character. And it says Hellboy on the belt buckle because Mignola drew a big belt and he wanted to fill it up. So he thought it'd be a good name, Hellboy. And that's why this means so much to Hellboy collectors, because this right here is like the prototype version. So now, the pinnacle of Hellboy, in a Hellboy collector's collection, the pinnacle of Mignola collectibles is a pamphlet, which is also like it's a promotional item, and it's not even of the actual character. It's a prototype. There was another finding. Between this book that most people didn't even know of until until like the last decade. And the book that people started to find out about, Dime Press 4, which is the prototype of Hellboy officially. And that was Next Men 14, April 1993.
Now, this is a crazy one. Again, another one of those true firsts that Topher found while just digging through an older issue.
We're talking 2020 that this happened.
Yep.
It took that long for this book to climb out of the dollar bin and sprint its way over to average prices currently on Key Collector. High average is $20, $100 9.8s to this day.
Oh. Over 25 years from this book, Next Men 14, being printed for anyone to even realize that Hellboy was in there. Now, if you look at the fine print, the indicia, it actually even says Hellboy, property Mike Mignola, copyright. Like, it's in there. But if you're flipping through the pages, there is a poster in the background. It is a red poster, and it is very clearly our friend Hellboy on there. So it is a color Hellboy, the actual Hellboy that we know, and he happens to be in Next Men 14.
It's like a poster, though. It's a little sketch.
Not
here.
a character. He's not speaking.
No.
It is just a poster in the background.
So that happened recently. People uncovered that. They got really excited. I got excited. But there was also this other book that's rather expensive, and it came out in Italy. It was a magazine, and it was a miniature magazine.
Yeah, Dime Press 4. And God, what year was it when I was showing that copy off to you that I had?
But I think it was before I opened the shop, so it might have been 2011.
Dude, I've bought a copy from both of you guys.
Yeah.
Like this, no, people didn't care about this book when I was
When
wanting
you
it.
showed it to me, it was the first one I'd ever seen, and I was actually shocked that it was not comic book size, because I had heard of it, but I had never seen one in person.
It's tiny.
So when you're like, oh, I've got one, and you like showed it to me, I'm like, whoa, this is small.
Next Men 14 came out in April 93. Dime Press number 4 is a May 1993 release. So we're talking within like 45 days, plus or minus 60 days, because, stuff gets made and then sent out, and sometimes it gets held. These dates are weird, but this is the order as we know based off of printing.
Yeah, I mean, somehow I got turned on to it. I can't remember where, but it ended up with like 4 or 5 copies. I had trouble selling them, but they still had like a legend market value because they were cool. And I remember talking to a guy in Italy who I got them from, and I think I might have made that contact through eBay at some point.
Describe that cover, because it's not red Hellboy, but it looks just like Hellboy.
If I remember, it's like kind of a grayish, coolish gray, kind of darker, and it's a guy kind of floating in the sky in a blue background and this little picture frame Marvel type style, but a little box. And it's a smaller book. I remember receiving it like, oh, this thing is not as big as I thought. But the guy had like 200 copies.
Oh my God.
Guys, this is a print run of allegedly 2,000 that were created and distributed in Italy. And you had an opportunity to buy 200 of them. Comic Fam recent sales, a 9.2 signed by Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy. By the way, doesn't typically charge for signatures. He likes to do donations, which is a great way to get some of your Mignola covers signed. Just do a donation to a good cause at his table. I recommend you do it at conventions if he offers this service, but he doesn't charge for signatures, so it's not very expensive. A 9.2 signed copy went for $3,000 of this book. How does that feel, Jeff? Because I think I bought a copy off of you. It was a VF book for like $60.
I'll tell you, so I felt great.
Back in the day.
Yeah, I felt great coming in today. I was like, oh, we're going to film, we're going to shoot. I had no idea what we were going to discuss. And we're discussing this, and I completely forgot about this book. I'll be honest with you. All right, I completely forgot about that thought, that story, and then you mentioned to me how I had several, and I was like, oh, you know what? I did. That's right.
We remember some really strange things about comic books. But don't you find it funny that we're sitting here, and you're saying you completely forgot about this comic book? And Russ and myself have both had this information that you've had this comic book in our brain for years. Like, we remember each other's acquisitions, and I will lose my own funny books sometimes.
Yeah, that's what's kind of fun, too, about going through your boxes every once in a while as well, right? Because then you're like, oh, that's right, I have this book. You don't remember every piece. And I know I've been to shows as a dealer, and people have their list. They have their list because they can't remember what they freaking have.
So sorry for interrupting. How does it make you feel about this Dime Press? Reliving this.
Yeah. So like I was saying, I came in a great mood, right? Came into a great mood here, all right, for this show. And then we brought it back this memory of, remembering that I had this and this opportunity to buy 200, and I couldn't even sell the ones I had.
Yeah, why didn't you? So you just thought it wasn't a good deal?
Yeah, I think there was something that the terms weren't right, and I didn't do it, okay? And in hindsight now hearing, I had no idea. I've not looked up this book really for probably a decade. I haven't had one. I haven't looked it up because I just don't see it. I just didn't really care. I moved past it. And to hear $3,000 for a 9.2 signed makes me want to go digging through my email and find this information. But I'm sure he's educated himself now too. So anyways, that is a loss for me.
Well, we just chatted about on a recent podcast, it was a couple episodes ago, about San Diego Comic-Con #2, because we've now talked about a pamphlet provided for free at a Comic-Con that a lot of people didn't go to, so it was very low print. Then we talked about a poster sketch that wasn't even done by Mignola. Then we talked about an Italian foreign miniature magazine that kind of defies multiple odds there for being valuable because of the size and the fact that it's foreign, even though I love me some foreign comics. Well, now we're at what a lot of people have labeled as the first appearance of Hellboy in story, San Diego Comic-Con issue #2 from 1993. This would have came out in August. And this right here is a 4-page story co-written by John Byrne. And we have the first team appearance of Monkey Man and O'Brien and the first appearance of Hellboy. This right here is a Comic-Con pamphlet again, but $700 sales for a 9.8.
Well, and it's not even a pamphlet. It's an actual comic book. It's 32 pages, but there's only 4 pages of Hellboy. But the fact that it's not in color is why so many people don't want this book. It is scarce. It's tough to find, but I keep finding more people that would rather have the next book we want to talk about on the list.
Dude, X-Men 21. This right here is December 1993. The last of this list. The Hellboy lens. I will bring it all back to this comic fan. First appearance of Hellboy in color on the cover, and it's a glorious back cover as well. $450 9.8 sales.
Yeah.
So it sells for less than all except for the poster sketch appearance.
Right.
But still less than San Diego, less than Dime Press, and certainly less than the Great Salt Lake pamphlet that debuted in 1991. This is the comic book that in Big Bang Theory, when there's like this joke, they're hunting for comics, they pull out this book. They're like, X-Men 21, this is the first appearance of Hellboy. This is the one where like, this just the, if you're into comics, kind of, but you really want a Hellboy key book and you're like, I just want that, that is going to be the most likely thing that's going to go on that person's wall. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's one that you're not going to be disappointed to own because the cover, he's on the cover. It's a great cover.
Right.
It's just a cool book, and it's most commonly known, like you said, for first appearance of Hellboy. So you're like, great, I got a key. $450 for a key, first appearance of a character like that. I mean, that just sounds like value to me. And that San Diego Comic-Con, it's a tough book. I've had that book. It's super fragile, light paper.
That blue
whatever.
on the cover chips really bad. You just like that white will stand out so much if there's even one slight crease.
Yeah, and it's cool and all, but again, he's not on the cover.
Right.
And the design of the character makes you want to have a copy of this book with him on the cover.
So you guys have been in comics a lot longer than me as far as dealing goes, especially with this caliber of book. And these calibers, I mean, hell, you guys literally sold me some of the first copies I ever got.
Right.
Over a decade ago. We've been doing this for a long time, guys. Of all the books on this list, although it is one of the lowest, would you say that one, X-Men 21, has been the first appearance in general for most buyers in your time as a dealer?
Absolutely.
Like that's the one that
absolutely.
like kind of reigns supreme for longest, right?
Totally. Well, and it's one of those deals that, like, again, it's on the cover, it's in color. You either want that or you want Seed of Destruction. Because if someone is...
You're adding another.
First
solo story.
First solo story. But the thing is that if you want to get Hellboy appearances, you want him to be on the cover. We've had a massive shift in the past few years because more and more people want graded comic books over the raw books. And if you have a book that's graded, you can't open it. So even if you have the San Diego Comic-Con one, the only way you're going to know Hellboy's in it is if you look at that little tiny blue thing on the label. No, I want to be able to look across the room and go, that's my 9.8 and that's Hellboy on the cover.
Wait, but as a collector, okay, if you're a minor leaguer collector, you know, you're just dipping your toe in the sport of comic collecting. You're like, okay, X-Men number 21 is the place to go for first appearance.
Right.
You start becoming a rookie. Maybe you finally made it to the majors. You're a rookie. You're like, then you're like San Diego Comic-Con. There it is. Then you get to the major leagues where you've been in it. You've learned more. You've been educated. Because for me, I'm kind of like, okay, those 2 books, the San Diego Comic-Con, X-Men 21. But now that I've been exposed and knowing more about the Dime Press where it's at now and the pamphlet, I'm like, oh, now that I've gained this knowledge, I can't help but want to have all of them.
Right.
And that's kind of the full
hobby.
circle. That is comic collecting. And we're talking right now about crazy things that people buy because you can imagine why someone would want it on the cover, but also on the interior or the prototype. And that's why I say the Hellboy lens. It's a great example of if you can understand these books and why people would value them, you can insert any IP, any other collectible, Golden Age, Silver Age. It could be Marvel, it could be DC, it could be independent, doesn't matter. And you can understand, oh, there is a value to that because there's a collector out there who wants it, and then scarcity applies, and then the condition applies. Can it be graded applies, and all these other factors. I want it on the comment section. I almost did it again there, comic fam. Below, obviously price, I'm sure, is going to be an indicator of something that you would want. But if you table price, let's just table price for a second. Just talking about the collectible. You can keep scarcity in there. But separate scarcity from price. Because, as we know, Motion Picture Funnies Weekly is technically priced less than a Marvel Comics #1. So table price for a second. Scarcity is fair game. Which of these Hellboy books would you actually want for collectible reasons? I want to hear in the comment section below.